Ladies and gentlemen, as we stand on the threshold of 2025, many of us are naturally filled with questions. What will the future hold? What plans should we make? Yet, I invite you to consider this. The most important question is not what's the plan for 2025, but how can we be fully present in each moment, regardless of what the future holds. We often find ourselves looking ahead to the future, believing that happiness, success, or fulfillment is something that will arrive at some later point in time. We set plans, make goals, and project expectations onto the coming months and years, as if the future holds the answers to our dissatisfaction with the present. But in doing so, we overlook the most important truth. True fulfillment is not something that comes to us in the future. It is found in the present moment. The future is a mental construct. It doesn't exist in the tangible way the present does. The mind creates stories about what might happen, weaving fantasies, fears, and hopes into elaborate projections. Yet, as we attach our sense of well-being to these projections, we begin to live not in reality but in a future that may never materialize as we envision it. The danger of this mindset is that we are perpetually looking for something outside of ourselves to complete us, something that can only be found when the right conditions align, which may never occur in the way we imagine. When we place our happiness and fulfillment in the future, we are essentially living in anticipation rather than in presence. This anticipation pulls us away from what is actually happening right now, creating a cycle of dissatisfaction. We are waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect circumstance, the perfect outcome. But the truth is that the perfect moment is always now, and the circumstances will never be perfect. They will always be in a state of change. When we stop projecting our happiness into the future and start embracing the present as it is, we release ourselves from the endless cycle of yearning and striving. We allow ourselves to experience life as it is, without the need for external validation or fulfillment. We can then begin to find peace, contentment, and a deeper connection with life itself, here and now, rather than in some distant time that may never come. The power of being present lies in its ability to help us connect with the true essence of life, which is constantly unfolding before us. Most of us spend much of our time in the past or the future, either regretting what has already happened or anxiously anticipating what is yet to come. However, in doing so, we miss the richness of the present moment, where life is actually taking place. When we shift our focus to the present, we free ourselves from the tyranny of our thoughts. The mind, which is often caught up in worry, planning, or reflection, tends to pull us away from the simple experience of now. This mental chatter creates a barrier between us and our true nature. Yet, by practicing mindfulness and awareness, we can break free from the constant noise of the mind and experience life as it is without judgment, expectation, or distortion. Being present means allowing ourselves to fully engage with whatever is happening in the moment, without the need for control or analysis. It is about embracing whatever arises, whether it is joy, discomfort, or uncertainty, without labeling it as good or bad. By doing so, we stop resisting life and start flowing with it. This doesn't mean that we give up our goals or ambitions, but rather that we approach them from a place of clarity, acceptance, and ease. The present moment is a doorway to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. It is the only place where we can truly experience life's beauty and complexity. In the present, we find the space to breathe, to listen, and to be. And it is in this space that we begin to recognize the profound simplicity and peace that are always available to us, no matter what circumstances we face. By learning to be present, we align ourselves with the flow of life, rather than constantly fighting against it. When we become attached to specific outcomes, we begin to shape our lives around expectations that are beyond our control. This attachment can create immense pressure as we place our sense of fulfillment, happiness, and success into the future, hoping that certain circumstances or achievements will provide us with what we need. However, this pattern of thinking keeps us trapped in a cycle of longing and dissatisfaction. It separates us from the present moment and creates a constant yearning for something outside of ourselves. The act of letting go of attachment does not mean that we stop striving for goals or working toward improvement. Rather, it means releasing our need for a specific outcome in order to feel fulfilled or happy. It is the recognition that our well-being is not dependent on how things turn out, but on our ability to remain grounded and present regardless of the outcome. When we let go of attachment, we allow ourselves to engage with life as it is, without the weight of unrealistic expectations. Instead of worrying about how things will unfold, we shift our focus to the process itself, being fully immersed in the task at hand, without the need for validation or a predetermined result. This freedom from attachment allows us to act with greater clarity, creativity, and peace. By no longer clinging to the need for specific outcomes, we free ourselves from the anxiety of failure or disappointment. We come to realize that true fulfillment does not come from external achievements or possessions, but from the inner state of peace we cultivate through acceptance, presence, and a willingness to let life unfold as it will. In this way, letting go of attachment creates the space for true freedom, allowing us to experience life with a sense of openness and joy, regardless of the outcome. The ego thrives on identification with roles, achievements, and possessions, constantly seeking validation and recognition from the outside world. It often creates a false sense of self rooted in the belief that our value is determined by how others perceive us or how successful we appear. This identification with the ego is one of the primary sources of suffering, as it keeps us trapped in a cycle of striving, comparison, and dissatisfaction. The ego constantly seeks to reinforce its own importance and superiority, often at the expense of our inner peace and well-being. When we identify ourselves solely through the lens of the ego, we place our worth in things that are external and fleeting. Our sense of self becomes tied to accomplishments, material possessions, or social status. This creates a fragile sense of identity, one that is constantly in need of validation. We may achieve something great, but the satisfaction is temporary because the ego always demands more. As a result, we become disconnected from our true essence, which is beyond the ego. To transcend the ego is to realize that our true identity is not defined by what we do, what we own, or how others see us. It is to recognize that we are not our thoughts, our emotions, or our accomplishments. We are the awareness behind them. When we begin to shift our attention away from the ego's constant demands and focus on the present moment, we reconnect with a deeper part of ourselves that is always at peace, independent of external circumstances. This shift in consciousness allows us to experience life more fully, without the constant need for validation, comparison, or approval. It is through this process of letting go of the ego's grip that we can truly experience inner freedom and a deep sense of peace. True freedom is found not in the pursuit of external circumstances or the fulfillment of desires, but in the ability to be present and accept life as it is. Most people spend their lives chasing after an idealized version of happiness or success, believing that their fulfillment will come once they have achieved certain goals or accumulated certain things. This mindset, however, keeps us trapped in a perpetual state of wanting, where satisfaction is always just out of reach. We place our peace and joy in the future, creating a sense of lack in the present. Freedom in its deepest sense, is the ability to let go of this constant striving. It comes when we stop identifying our worth with what we do or what we possess and instead embrace the present moment. When we allow ourselves to be fully present without the need to change or fix anything, we tap into a deeper sense of peace that transcends external circumstances. This shift in perspective allows us to experience life as it is, without the filter of judgment or expectation. In letting go of the need to control or manipulate the world around us, we open ourselves to the natural flow of life. We stop resisting what is, and in doing so, we stop creating suffering. By accepting ourselves and the world as they are, we align with a deeper intelligence that is always at work, guiding us toward what we truly need. True freedom is not about having everything we want, but about being able to be fully present with whatever is, without judgment or attachment. When we stop seeking freedom in external achievements and instead cultivate an inner state of acceptance and presence, we experience life with a sense of peace and contentment. This inner freedom is the foundation for living a life of authenticity and fulfillment, free from the tyranny of expectation and comparison. The idea of accepting the present moment can be challenging for many, especially when faced with situations that seem undesirable or uncomfortable. However, true peace and transformation are found in our ability to embrace the present as it is, without resistance. The mind often creates a narrative about the present moment, labeling it as good or bad, comfortable or uncomfortable. This judgment keeps us disconnected from the reality of the present and leads to unnecessary suffering. When we resist the present moment, we resist life itself. Acceptance does not mean passivity or resignation. It does not imply that we should never take action or seek improvement. Instead, it means recognizing that what is happening right now is part of the unfolding of life. It is the realization that we cannot control everything, and attempting to control everything only brings frustration. In this acceptance, we can act with clarity and presence, free from the internal conflict that arises from resistance. When we accept the present moment, we stop fighting against our circumstances, emotions, or thoughts. We begin to experience life with more ease, because we are no longer in constant conflict with what is. This acceptance allows us to approach challenges with a sense of calm, knowing that everything is temporary and that we can navigate through it with awareness. By fully experiencing the present without judgment, we allow ourselves to learn and grow from each moment rather than wishing it were different. The key to peace lies not in changing the external world, but in transforming our relationship to it. By releasing resistance and embracing acceptance, we shift our consciousness from one of struggle to one of peace. This shift enables us to engage with life more authentically and with greater wisdom, as we are no longer trapped in the mind's constant striving for something else.